Welcome to another episode of Do You Remember? Today we will be looking at some of the strange and unnecessary changes Disney has made to its live-action remakes. Disney has a practice of continuously recycling old material for new generations. Some of these films made much-needed changes to these stories, most notably ones that involved negative depictions of marginalized communities, but many revisions actually hurt the overall story of the film. Once a recipe for guaranteed success, the Disney remake train saw no sign of slowing down until 2025's Snow White that saw audiences reject its woke storytelling and Latina actress Rachel Zegler to the point that several live-action remakes that had been scheduled for release have been halted or canceled altogether, such as the live-action Tangled. Number 10. Captain Hook's villainy is explained with an unnecessary backstory. A classic story of the wonder of childhood, Peter Pan is a crucial addition to Disney's canon. Tinker Bell is an integral mascot for Disney's brand, representing faith and magic and inspiring audiences to believe that anything is possible. Though Peter Pan is a beloved story, the film does feature many problematic aspects, mainly how Native Americans are depicted, prompting Disney to put a disclaimer before the film on Disney+. One element that elevates the story is the characterization of the evil Captain Hook, a temperamental pirate who seeks revenge on Peter Pan for cutting his hand off and feeding it to a crocodile. In Peter Pan and Wendy, Captain Hook is painted as a more sympathetic character, having a personal connection to Peter Pan that Wendy discovers. Once a part of the Lost Boys, Peter banished Hook, then known as James, because he missed his mother. It's later revealed that this was done mostly out of jealousy, as Peter left his home due to getting into a fight with his mother. This attempt at connecting the characters aims to raise the stakes, but instead, it just convoluted the story. It's best when villains are just allowed to be villains. A backstory can be compelling, but it's just as interesting to see a villain be their dastardly self without a traumatic history. Number 9. King Louie is a Gigantopithecus despite the species being extinct. In the 1967 version of The Jungle Book, King Louie is an upbeat, energetic orangutan who serves as a minor antagonist, seeking knowledge of how to make fire from Mowgli. The iconic "I Wanna Be Like You" number livens up the screen with Louie and his monkey companions dancing around Mowgli and the disguised Baloo. In the 2016 remake, Louie, voiced by Academy Award winner Christopher Walken, has a completely different appearance, towering over Mowgli as a larger-than-life creature. Since orangutans are not native to India, where the film takes place, the producers aim to have a more authentic version of King Louie, thus deciding to make Louie a Gigantopithecus. Though Louie is definitely more intimidating this way, his lack of mobility and confinement to essentially one section of the room sucks the life out of the jazzy musical number. Not to mention, Gigantopithecus went extinct almost 300,000 years ago, while the story of The Jungle Book takes place in the early 20th century. Number 8. The Beast has a book that can transport characters anywhere. The Beast's castle is full of enchanted objects, each serving its own purpose in the story in the original 1991 animated film. Both the temporal rose and the magical handheld mirror are especially important to the story, the rose being a consistent reminder of the time constraint to lift the curse, and the mirror allowing the Beast to view the outside world. The 2017 live-action remake introduced one more magical addition that basically has the same purpose as the magic mirror. Attempting to further bond with Belle, the Beast shows her a magical book that allows the reader to travel to any destination. Belle uses it to seek out her old home in Paris. Belle learns the truth about her mother's death, dying from the plague, causing her father to move, aiming to start a new life. This revelation doesn't really add anything to the plot except a reason for the Beast to feel bad about how he treated Belle's father. The film would have been just fine relying on the magic of the mirror, as the book just complicates the main narrative and adds to an already unnecessarily long runtime. Number 7. The Genie falls in love with Jasmine's handmaiden. The 1992 version of Aladdin has been criticized for a number of outdated and problematic aspects, but what's not often mentioned is that Jasmine is the only female central character in the film. Though this choice works to showcase how isolated Jasmine must feel as a woman in a male-dominated world, It's still unfortunate that Jasmine is the only positive female representation in the film. For the 2019 remake, Disney took note of this and added the character Dahlia, Jasmine's handmaiden and confidant, played by former SNL cast member Nasim Pedrad. At first glance, this seems like a decent change, but the film sees Dahlia marrying the genie after Aladdin grants the genie his freedom. There was no need for a romantic relationship to develop between the two, especially since Aladdin and Jasmine's love story already carries so much of the film. Number 6. The CGI dwarfs are distracting. Snow White, 2025. Since its announcement, Disney's live-action Snow White remake has been the subject of intense controversy. Emmy Award-winning actor Peter Dinklage, who has dwarfism, was particularly outspoken about how Disney could possibly remake a film that features negative and stereotypical depictions of characters with dwarfism. After this backlash, Disney announced that the dwarfs would be reverted to magical creatures. Many actors within the dwarfism community were disappointed that these roles were reduced to uncanny valley CGI and expressed that in Disney's attempt to be more politically correct, they did more harm than good. Much like many of Disney's fully CGI characters, the dwarfs appear awkward and their animated appearances just don't translate well to live action. The dwarfs' magical abilities are also underutilized in the film, further cementing that there was no need to make these characters magical in the first place. Number 5. Why did Xianyang need to be included? Mulan, 2020. There are many alterations to the live-action Mulan that angered fans. Completely removing Mushu and the grandiose musical numbers that made the original film spectacular was certainly an interesting choice. It's clear that Disney wanted to capitalize on their most prominent girl power narrative, revitalizing the story of Mulan to appeal to a new generation of women and young girls. One of the ways Disney did this was by adding Xianyang, a powerful witch fighting alongside the enemy, who relates to Mulan. Though Xianyang undoubtedly has a chilling design with talon-like fingernails and an intricate golden headpiece, her character is completely unnecessary to the story. Unlike Aladdin, Mulan didn't have a significant lack of female characters, featuring Mulan's anxious mother and her feisty grandmother, among other more antagonistic female forces, such as the matchmaker. The fact that Mulan is the only one of her gender fighting elevates the stakes and makes her journey more personal. It's clear what the writers were trying to accomplish with Xianyang, but it ultimately fails, especially when she ends up sacrificing herself for Mulan, which is jarring and feels out of place. Number 4. Baby Mine isn't sung by Dumbo's mother. Dumbo, 2019. Though Mrs. Jumbo is never explicitly seen singing the Oscar-nominated, tear-jerking song, it's heavily implied that the lullaby is a dedication of love to her child. As Dumbo sobs into his mother's trunk while she's in captivity, viewers can't help but feel their hearts sink. In the 2019 remake, directed by Tim Burton, none of the animals speak, and the story revolves more around the human characters. Dumbo's loyal companion, Timothy Q. Mouse, doesn't even appear in the film by name and is only paid homage to as a pet mouse owned by the 2 children of former circus performer Holt Ferrier, played by Colin Farrell. The removal of Timothy is alarming enough, but the most drastic change comes in how the classic Baby Mine scene is modified. The song is instead directly sung by Miss Atlantis, a mermaid performer played by Sharon Rooney. Dumbo is still caressed by his mother's trunk, but the scene isn't nearly as touching as it was in the original. Perhaps the scene would have been more impactful if it had been sung by a mother to a child who were circus performers and spliced with Dumbo going to see his mother. Number 3. The fairies are just plain dumb instead of guiding role models. Maleficent, 2014. In the 1959 Sleeping Beauty, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather are dignified, respected, magical beings who take on the responsibility of raising Aurora after the placement of Maleficent's curse. In the 2014 retelling Maleficent, the fairies are still the ones that look after Aurora, but their grace and whimsy are reduced to essentially nothing. Instead, the 3, renamed Flittle, Knotgrass, and Thistlewood, spend most of their time bickering and neglecting Aurora. If it weren't for Maleficent always watching to see if her curse would be carried out, Aurora likely would not have survived childhood. The fairies' antics aren't even funny and just cause audiences to roll their eyes. The colossal change to their personalities almost makes their place in the story almost completely irrelevant, as they barely serve their purpose as a guardian for Aurora. Having them have a slight prior connection with Maleficent when she had her wings doesn't add anything either, as it's just another misguided attempt to link characters who don't have a lot in common, with the exception that they're fairies. Number 2. The animals' designs are awful to look at. The Little Mermaid, 2023. Perhaps the racist backlash over Ariel being played by Black actress and singer Halle Bailey was too loud for fans to recognize the real problem with the 2023 The Little Mermaid. Undoubtedly, the most unfortunate thing about the remake is how creatively designed, animated characters were ferociously altered to more realistic versions of themselves, completely decimating any charm they had. Flounder's chubby, cuddly appearance is changed to a drab, boring fish you'd see in a doctor's office fish tank. Scuttle's fluffy feathers and orange webbed feet are altered to a plain bird with little exterior personality, and Sebastian's shtick of clamoring to be intimidating despite being a tiny crab is obliterated as his hyper-realistic eyes invoke an unsettling feeling in viewers. The ocean world and its occupants were so magical in the original film, and it's beyond disappointing to see that the live-action version couldn't capture that. Number 1. Be Prepared was totally butchered. The Lion King, 2019. Be Prepared is hands down one of Disney's best villain songs. A chilling sequence, elevated by the vocals of Jeremy Irons and Jim Cummings, and a distinct smoky green and gray color palette, the song brilliantly showcases what's to come and cements Scar as a formidable threat and wickedly compelling character. The live-action remake cuts the sequence in half and is mostly performed in spoken word and shouting. Reducing such a masterful song to a shortened, dull version of itself feels insulting to the original film. The other songs from 1994's The Lion King, including I Just Can't Wait to Be King and Can You Feel the Love Tonight, definitely don't possess the quality of the original, but they're at least attempts at bringing the classic songs to a live-action format. Be Prepared is the worst of the worst when it comes to live-action iterations, as it dishonors the legendary material it's based on. And that's it for another episode of Do You Remember? Post your comments down below if you agree or have any other examples of changes to Disney live-action remakes.